Hey guys, Mrs. Benson here. You guys are going to be reading a historical fiction book called G.I. Dogs Prisoner of War. G.I. Dogs Prisoner of War. Hopefully that's not backwards for you. It might be now that I'm looking at it. This story took place during World War II. And World War II is a really famous war that took place in the late 30s and early to mid 1940s, so a long time ago. I wanted to show you a little bit about it, but I realized this is going to be backwards for you. What this says is World War II. There were two different sides. There was something called the Axis powers, and they were Germany, Italy, and Japan. And then there was the side that the United States fought on called the Allies. And the countries that were on their side were France, Great Britain, the United States, the Soviet Union, and to a smaller degree, China. And they were on our side. So I don't know how to make that not be crooked or backwards for you, but if you can remember that Japan and the United States were on two different sides, that's really important for this story, okay? So this story is interesting because it actually is told by the dog, and the dog's name is Judy. And Judy is an English pointer, and this is what she looks like. And so she actually narrates this story. So you're getting the take of this story through what the dog thinks. Okay, and we're going to find out a little bit about her right now in the prologue. The prologue of a story is before chapter 1, and it gives you a little bit of background information about what's going to happen. So it's not chapter 1, it's before chapter 1. So here's the prologue. Okay, the prologue says, escape from Singapore. Singapore was under siege. As a ship's dog on the HMS Grasshopper, an English gunboat, my job was to keep the men's spirits up and warn them when danger was near. Today, danger was all around. Japanese bombs had been falling since December. The first Japanese troops entered Singapore in February 1942. On the 11th, the British got the order to evacuate, which means to leave. Soldiers, government workers, and British and Chinese families all crowded the pier fighting for a place on a ship, any ship. Every vessel, from small fishing boats to private yachts and passenger steamers, no matter how old, was called into service. So all of the people of this island of Singapore, which I'll show you on the globe shortly, they were all trying to escape Singapore because there were Japanese bombs being dropped on their country or on their island. So everyone's rushing down to the pier where all the boats are to try to get on a boat to leave the island. Gunfire and bombs were all around us. The normal waterfront smells mingled with the unsettling sense of smoke and death. And underneath all the other smells was fear. The civilians, especially the children, were terrified, and it was my job to help them. I was afraid too, but I never let them see it. So it was the job of this dog to help them out. On February 13, the final evacuation began. Sailors desperately tried to keep order on the pier while confused and frightened mothers and children came on board the Grasshopper. My friend George White gave each person a cup of tea and a piece of chocolate while I wagged my tail and nuzzled little fingers and barked a hello. Because remember, the dog right now is trying to keep everyone calm. Welcome to the Grasshopper, I told them. You're safe. And really, she wasn't talking. The dog wasn't talking, but she was trying to imply that by nuzzling up to them and making them feel comfortable. As darkness fell, we began to pull out of the crowded harbor when suddenly we got the order to turn around. There was another group of refugees who needed to come on board. Every inch of the ship was already full, but we somehow made room for more. Refugees are people who are leaving their country, and they need help. We finally left the harbor after midnight. The hardest thing was hearing the shouts from the people who had been left behind. I stood on the deck and howled with them, so there was no more room for those people. I'm sorry, we're already dangerously overcrowded. There's no more room. As soon as we were out of earshot, I snuggled down between two of the most frightened children and tried to get some sleep. But, as always, my ears were on alert for the sound of Japanese warplanes and the bombs they carried. With luck, we'd make it to Java in a few days, and from there, larger ships could take us to India or Australia. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on our side. I'm going to tell you the story of how I became an official Japanese prisoner of war during World War II, and how I managed to keep myself and my men alive. But before we get to all that, let's start at the beginning in Shanghai, China. Okay, I'm just going to pause you there. Just a reminder, what she kind of told you is that they were evacuating the island, Singapore evacuation. They were going to leave Singapore and go to this place called Java, which I'll show you on the globe. And then they're going to go either, oops, and I didn't have an R there, but either to Australia or India to be safe. On the globe, the United States is way over here. So here's the United States, okay? We have to cross this ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and we come all the way around here to Singapore. It's this little island right here. And then Java, where they were trying to get, is right here. When they got to Java, they were hoping to get on another boat and either go to Australia, the big country and continent of Australia, or they were going to go up here to India. So they were going to sail in a boat up here. But it sounds like they never made it in the prologue. They weren't lucky. So they became prisoners of war, and we'll find out about that. So there's your prologue. I'll read chapter 1 to you shortly.